Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to the event tonight. My name is Charlotte, and I'm our Senior Program Manager here at Factory Berlin. And this event is really exciting for us because it's a great example of how our community and network comes together. So Wayra is a partner of Factory Berlin, and today they're going to be telling us a little bit more about how to win corporate clients. Corporate clients are really exciting and important opportunities for startups. They can unlock a lot of opportunities, but the relationship can be difficult to manage because there are strategic differences there. So we have Nora Alfen, who's the head of acceleration at Wayra, who's joining us on stage, and Lara Obst, who's the co-founder and chief climate officer at the Climate Choice. Thank you. Enjoy the event.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm really happy to be here today, and I'm really looking forward to this session. Maybe Lara want to introduce himself a bit more.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a little bit sorry that I didn't get these nice introductions, so it would be really cool to know who's all here. And yeah, maybe some of you I met somewhere online, so it's really cool to meet in person now. And yeah, I'm Lara, one of the founders of the Climate Choice. We are actually also a Factory Berlin member, so it's really, really nice to be here today. I just had 5 minutes walk to come. And we are also closely working together with Wayra, so this is why it's a very nice event to bring together all the things that we are working on right now, and happy to share more.
Thank you. Yeah, I start with a short introduction about Wayra. Does anybody know Wayra? Please give a sign. Yay. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm impressed. Awesome. Okay, but I will tell you a bit more now. So, like I already said, I'm Nora Alfen. I'm the head of venture development at Wayra Germany. Wayra, or what is our vision? I start always with the vision because that's the biggest thing here. We are the most reliable partner for startups to shape the future of telecommunications together with you. Like, for example, with Factory Berlin. So with all our partners. And what we are doing and how we do it is our mission. Our mission is to drive corporate innovation by scouting, scaling, and investing in tech startups. And how we do that, I will tell that now a bit more in detail. You can do the next slide. So we have 4 pillars at Wayra. And I start with the investment arm. I think that's also an important topic for startups, of course, because we have the possibility to invest in our startups up to 350K. Because we think it's not enough to organize pilot projects and to help them to have their first clients, but also to help them in the future that they can scale. We can talk about all the really details later in the Q&A, okay? So, then the community, also a big one. Sorry. The community is a really important topic for us because we have 1,000 square meters in Munich in our office, and there's not only the Wayra team. There are 60, 70 founders of startups, and we try to use this community, or we use this community to bring them together with Telefónica, because we are the open innovation hub of Telefónica. That means we really try to bring innovation out from outside to the inside of the corporate. And that's why we have also a resident program. That's a really new one. And we started this year. And we try that they can, or we help them to prepare their solution, that they can work after 1 or 2 years with Telefónica for a POC, or in best case, of course, in long-term, a commercial agreement. And we have a 5G tech lab. I think it's not so relevant for today, to be honest, but it's a huge project, and in case you're interested, we can talk about that. But actually, just in really short version, we want to show what we can do with 5G, because as a telecommunication hub, we want to support the technology startups here. And we have acceleration. That's our heart of the whole Wayra, I would say, because it's my team. Maybe next slide, please. We work with the venture client model. Does anybody know the venture client model? No? Yes. Okay. So I have to explain that. Awesome. I love that. the venture client model is actually, I think, a really, really clever thing, because we want that both worlds, the corporate world and the startup world, come together. And how we do that? We organize pilot projects. So a business unit is coming over, writing me a mail saying, hey Nora, I need help for my HR topic. We need, for example, or we need a new solution for data protection, topics, that the people learn more about that, like e-learning, for example. So we go out on the market and we scout. And we are looking for startups and technologies that are new and that are interesting. And then we do one-on-ones with the business unit, and in the best case, after some time, they have milestones and a scope of the whole project. And then we do a 4-month project, a pilot project. And our main goal after these 4 months is that there's a real commercial agreement. So pilot project is nice, of course, but in the end there should be money. And also already in the pilot project we pay the budget. So I want to say in the end that we have a win-win situation here, because the startup has the opportunity to win the Telefónica as their first corporate client, and Telefónica has the first step into new technologies and innovative solution. So I think that's a really cool thing to do for both worlds. So some numbers here, just to prove that it's for real. We have invested already globally in 1,000 startups since the beginning, because Wayra is not only in Munich, we have it 4 times in Europe and 4 times in Latin America. So 1,000 startups already invested. 500 startups are in our portfolio, and 180 startups, I think that's the most important number, startups working already with Telefónica. So that's why I tell you today the 5 hacks how to win your first corporate client, because I think this number proves that we can talk about that. But before I start, who has a startup here? Everybody? Okay, a lot of people. And who has already a corporate client? Okay. So, and what, maybe a question, what were the biggest challenges for you?
Anyone who needs a mic? Was that you? Okay, sorry, against the light, it's really hard to see.
Okay, I think the biggest challenge is that speed difference, because the startups, it's like if you compare the startup with a big client, a big corporate client, the startup is like a small boat, so we go very fast and take decisions very fast, and the decision-making process for the client is painfully slow.
Long.
So sometimes to close a proper contract, it takes like 1 year, maybe a month. It can take months, depending on the project. And the startup need speed. So sometimes, like the communication process is really a challenge, because you send something to them and they take like weeks to get back.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, good point. Somebody else?
Ladies first. Bless you.
I would repeat the same point, speed, and I would add also the IT security assessment of those big corporates. There's big hurdles to comply to all of those, and it's a long process.
Yeah. That's why it needs so much time, yeah. I think. Lara, maybe you want to say something?
I think I'm gonna share on that afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry.
Is my spot programmed?
So I don't work directly with big corporates, but I work with my clients. They are early stage startups, and I help them to get to market and to find their clients. And I think the big One of the big problem is the accessibility. So being able to access to the decision maker. And then I think that is the first hurdle. And then obviously there is the speed and the process and everything. But I think the first thing is being able to access to these people and these names.
Yeah. Thank you. I will tell you the 5 facts, and afterwards I will talk about that, because I think that's actually already points in the 5 hacks, because yeah, of course, that are the big problems. It's working, yeah. Okay. So thank you for sharing. And now the 5 hacks to win your first corporate client. Perfect. So in the beginning, I don't know, I have an echo here. No. Sorry. Yeah, bring more than just an idea. Because the idea is, of course, the first step. Without any idea, there's no startup, of course. But you need more and a specific use case. And in best case, a specific use case for a company, of a specific company or a specific industry. So the use case have to be really tailored to the needs of the customer. Because otherwise they will not pay for something when they have no real pain there. And that's why you have to do your research, because how can I find the problems within a corporate that I can solve with my solution? I had a discussion here with our founders, and they were like, yeah, it would be awesome to have a round table with all the corporate guys, and they tell all the issues and problems of the last year, for example, they had with processes or technology, and we can just write it down and think about a solution. And I think, yeah, that's actually how it should work. I mean, I know these round tables, it's really difficult to do that. I tried it once, it was not easy. But yeah, I think that's the goal, to have really the use case and really a specific one for your solution to sell that. So the second hack is your network is your door opener. I mean, you see we are here today, and also after 2 years of COVID, there's still the networking topic. And you can always start with your friends, family, fans, as a first step, because they always give you the most honest feedback, probably. And maybe they know someone who is interested in your solution. And use your existing business network. Normally, you don't start directly after university with your startup. Normally, you had already some work experience, so you have colleagues from the work before. So tell them your solution, tell them what are you doing at the moment, because often they know someone in another corporate or in that corporate you were already, or you were working before, and can help you here. And expand your network like you're doing today. To share to expand it like an events or via LinkedIn, for example. So actually tell everybody what you're doing at the moment so that they can spread the word. And also, don't underestimate the whole social media channels. I mean, for example, the whole LinkedIn topic is really huge, and you can really do a lot for your startup. When you use LinkedIn, then you have to create content, and you really have to do something there, and that's a lot of work. Actually, I want to ask Clara here a bit more, because I think she's really, really good at it. I mean, Climate Choice, the LinkedIn game is really strong. So maybe you want to talk a bit more about how you did it and why you do it, and is it really useful?
Yeah, first of all, I think your first hack was already making me laugh, because that's, I think, the reason why we have a strong LinkedIn, or why we build our network. Because actually my introduction slides are later, but then I catch it now. We have started 2 years ago, and back then it was my co-founder and me, and we had the idea, okay, we want to bring in our climate knowledge, combine it with software, and we want to help companies become a climate-friendly company. But that was basically it. So we were like, okay, somewhere in that area, but what is exactly the point? And we started in April 2020 in Corona times, and really first started with finding out what is a customer's pain point. And first we did that in consultancy projects, and then actually out of the Corona situation that people were not really heavily investing in products and services, and especially in a startup that yet is not offering a service or a product. We really created our conference, which we now have the third round. And the whole idea of it was like to solve our own problem, and we thought then if we have the problem, other people have it as well. So we really thought of how can we help economy to decarbonize and to transform into a climate-friendly economy, and really had this idea of we need to bring decision makers together. We don't only need to have these events for like private people where we saw it a lot. We live in Berlin in this bubble, right? Everyone talks about it. But then we really thought, okay, for decision makers, you have COP26 of 26 it was back then. But everything is a little bit behind closed doors and maybe not that accessible. And so we created the conference. We had at the first time, I think 6 weeks to organize it and 500 people joining. And from there, we're basically doing what you said, noting down what is discussed, what do companies really need, and invited the sustainability manager of companies, solution providers, players in that field. And from there, really built up our network. So I think it was driven from a strong interest to solve a problem, and from that we were able to explore what people really have as a problem, and from there starting to provide a solution. So like I think also for network is for me hopefully or what drives me is like to really also offer a value, and then through, especially because you said LinkedIn, also share knowledge and make it valuable for people to be in contact.
But is it a lot of work with LinkedIn, right? Because I think it's hours you can just prepare content.
Yeah, sure, but I guess we are all seeing that communication is becoming more and more key, and especially when you want to reach people, you have to communicate, and then it also brings you so much value. So for us, really like sharing this beginning story, that was a main asset we got, like talking then to chief climate officers, like from corporates who were leading in Europe division or like in a global division sometimes, just after 2 months that we have started up. So that was quite an acceleration, and for that you also invest some time.
Thank you. And actually, because I said with the time, I think also you have to be careful with who you are talking because in the end you have thousands of recommendations and 1,000 contacts, but what are the most interesting ones? I mean, then you really have to filter it, and that's why my recommendation is to focus your energy on resources, on sales and real revenues impact, always at first, because that's in the end the most important thing. That's one back. Sorry. No, and social media changed networking really a lot, and that's good, but networking has become so much easier that it also, that at some time, or at this time we have the number of potential cooperation partners is also, or it's so many more now, and it's really multiplied. So that's why I think it's important to select really carefully and to bring yourself into the focus of the right people. With your LinkedIn, for example. Now it's the next one. Put your niche in the focus. Like I already said a bit, you should solve a specific problem, and the all-in-one solution is really difficult to sell. So you have to work on the value you bring to a company. And when you have, for example, a mobility startup and you come to Telefónica and say, hey, I have a really interesting startup or a solution, then it will be, of course, it will be difficult. So that's why, I often see startups that adjust their solutions really often. Like, okay, here's another big corporate and I try to work with them, so I adjust a bit my solution here, a feature there, and in the end, they waste the resources because for short term, maybe that works out, but on long term, the conversion rate is really bad. So that's why you should really focus on your target audience and make your solution better there or improve it, but not try to work with everybody because that's just impossible for the resources of a startup. Then the fourth hack is dream big, but start small. That means when a startup starts to work with corporates or clients, it's really difficult to start with a big one. Like, for example, Telefónica. We always tell the startups, you need clients, smaller clients, before you work with Telefónica, because that was exactly the point we were talking about that before, with the whole data protection and all the processes that need a lot of time. So that's why you need at first smaller clients to get better with your solution and to improve it, and also because you can, of course, with more clients you get more references, so it's easier to convince a big corporate when you have already 10 references of smaller agencies that say, okay, but they're doing a really great job, so that's easier for you. And you always have to go for references. I think that's super important. Also, if you, in best case, you do some pilot projects, and sometimes also for free. I know that's always a big discussion because no startup wants to offer their solution for free, and I totally get that. And that's why there's the accelerator, so that's also a good solution for that. But sometimes you have to do it because otherwise you have no chance to convince a big corporate, because they're really risk averse, and when they have no guarantee that it will work out, they will not try it. So give them something for free, and then the chance that your solution can convince is higher, of course, and in best case, really, really high. So, and the last hack, and maybe the most important one, is sell your story. I know actually this generation is better in this because we have all the social media channels, but I think sometimes it's not so easy because you have to be that kind of person. And I truly believe that that startups or founders that are really convinced of their solution, that they can sell it because it's authentic. But sometimes it helps a lot to have an origin story and to make it a bit more emotional so that the people can remember. And especially as a woman, I think sometimes it's more difficult to sell the story because we are more focused on the facts, and men are sometimes a bit more focused on the vision, and that is helpful to be focused on the vision, because when someone is saying, hey, I'm the next Netflix, the people in the corporate can imagine, okay, that's what I want to have, or that's what I want to do. But when I say, hey, my numbers from the last year were like that, and actually that's really good, really, then it's not so convincing. So I think that's an important point as a woman. But here I want also to ask Lara, I mean, how is it as a female founder?
So I've never been a male founder, so that is always my first answer. I cannot compare it, but yeah, I think it's what you say. Like maybe you also sometimes switch roles, so it's maybe not only female or male. How you communicate or how you think. I see it in our founder group, so to say, with my two male co-founders, that I think you also sometimes have in one conversation more this role and in another one a little bit differently. What I totally agree on is like have your own strong mission. So when you are like very much convinced of it, yeah, it motivates you anyway to start up and go along with your idea. But then, yeah, you definitely can also bring it to other people. And yeah, in the pitch, that is then always a thing. I would guess like in the situation, are you like really, is it a sales conversation? Then I might not start with the world is on fire. Which I would do in a keynote or something, but yeah, I really like what you had as first point, to also understand what the other people focus on and what their problem is, and maybe you can also bring your story around that to like also adapt it to the person you are speaking to and to the situation that you are presenting.
Thank you. And in case you're not a salesperson, then you have to find someone that can do this job for you. And I think often startups really underestimate how important they are for big corporates today. And that's why I think they can sometimes a bit more confident with their story. Because from my experience, the corporates love to show themselves with startups. I know maybe that's not the nicest thing to hear, but for example, our CEO did a whole video, marketing video about the success story they have together with a startup from Wayra. And it was, of course, for both sides a win-win situation, because for Telefónica, it's like, okay, we are super innovative, and of course they are, but it's good to sell that, and for the founder, it's great to have this marketing video afterwards. Like, okay, I did a video with the CEO of Telefónica Germany. I mean, that's quite nice. So that's important because you are important for them, and also when you want to work with a corporate, of course, you have to be really professional, and I'm always a bit. I like the sentence, fake it till you make it, because I think, that's the game. You have to give them a good feeling. You have to sell a feeling of security that you will handle it. Of course, but on the other side, of course, you have to handle it then in the case. So just selling it is, of course, not enough. But in case you're convinced that you can do it, just say it, and don't show them the struggle you have sometimes, and don't say that, hey, I'm only a small and smart startup, because that's really difficult for them, because like I already said, they're more risk averse, so don't do that. Yeah, and in the end, I think the most important thing is always the emotion, because all the corporate people have, like everybody, like human beings, emotions, and when they're always really motivated to work with startups, because it's something different, they get new knowledge, and it's exciting for them also, and they have fun. So that's why I think it's also important to show them why you do this, and give them a bit of feelings and emotions in their daily doing, and So that were my 5 hacks to convince a corporate client to work with you. Lara, do you want to take over to introduce climate choice and a bit more? We have now the proof here on the stage how the pilot project was with Wayra. Please don't say something wrong. No, but maybe you want to tell a bit more about your startup and how the work with Wayra and the pilot project was, and your experiences here.
Yeah, really happy to do so. And maybe I steal your first question. So who of you knows already the climate choice? Okay, some. That's just a third. And I should do the check if you know what we are doing, but that's probably evolving as well. Oh, we have here something. That's mine. So first of all, with the climate choice, we are building the climate data platform for companies to decarbonize, and to especially decarbonize their supply chain. And for the corporate pitch, we believe that is the biggest financial opportunity nowadays to go into it and to become a climate champion, be part of the future economy, and really survive in this battle of becoming a net zero company. But on the emotional side, we really see that we do not have so much time left. So we have 4 years until we will reach the 1.5 degree target. So the global warming is increasing tremendously, and we see it is connected to a human extension of CO2 emissions. And we have figured, doing our research, that actually the biggest problem are not really the CO2 emissions of a company own actions and the own, we call it scope 1 and 2, so where they have like maybe their energy supply or the building, but actually most of their emissions, and that goes across all industries, it definitely varies a little bit, but they buy most of their emissions from their supply chain. So through mostly products and service, they add on, so to say, CO2 to their balance sheet. And if they now want to become a climate champion and to become climate neutral, they really need to have transparency about their supply chain and need to understand who of their suppliers is like actually already addressing climate targets, is maybe having a climate strategy to reduce CO2, and how much emissions they actually buy in through products and service. And believe it or not, we are not there yet. So this is actually the corporate challenge that the world is seeing right now. So we have all these big corporates that have pledged sometimes to become in 5 years even climate neutral. And if they really want to take this forward, this means that they have to work together with their suppliers. They need to find the data to understand where their suppliers stand. They need to make decisions on that, buying decisions, and they need to improve their suppliers, because not all of their corporates can now change their suppliers. We all know that supply chains have become a big risk globally due to adding on crisis, so to say. So what's happening right now is that all these companies, especially the climate officers in these companies, are sending around weird Excels, and everyone is trying to define an own standard, which kind of data they need, and they get like randomly data back from their suppliers. So they invest a lot of time, a lot of effort. They try to understand the regulations behind it, and what they end up with is a lot of effort and unstructured, not machine readable often data that is very questionable if it's good or not. So that is a problem we are tackling, and that is how it looks like. So to give you a short walkthrough, we enable companies to doing climate rating along international standards that are right now evolving, which data to collect to assess the climate maturity of companies. And we offer this tool not only to the corporate, but for sure to their suppliers. So they first go through the process themselves, they understand how the tool is working, and most of all, they also walk the talk. So we have seen that climate targets are not the end, you really need to go into action. So we really want to also bring this knowledge into corporates to understand you need a climate management structure. It's not enough to have a CO2 number, you really need to fulfill all these boxes from governance to strategy, risk, metrics, KPIs, and so on. And from there, they give the access to our platform to their suppliers. So we're going to talk about that. That's what we are doing with Telefónica right now, rolling out to 1,000 suppliers. And from here, we validate the data. We have a third data party check. We also make the data machine readable and therefore also auditable. We work together with different auditors to do that. And then we have a platform where the suppliers can use the data themselves to gain learnings and understand how they can improve, but then they can also share it with their customer who has requested the data and therefore improve on their short-term and long-term relationship. And doing that, I've just spoken outside with someone about it, is exactly what I mentioned in the beginning. So we see that this topic is so new, and companies often give us the answer, I'm doing something already in climate, I have measured my CO2, and then we are like, oh, okay, and do you have a climate management, and do you work with your suppliers? And often that's missing. We see that there's so much knowledge lagging, and that we are also learning about it all. We are also a startup. We want to for sure understand which problems are occurring, which challenges are there. But then, we can offer some knowledge. I've worked 10 years in the climate and sustainability field. We are on top on all the regulations. My one co-founder comes from the financial world, so he has been working and building financial digital products, and we are sharing this knowledge with corporates. So from that, we have also build up a strong community to really first offer companies something before they buy something from us. We offer them to become part of our climate community, which we run through regular webinars, and we have a magazine and a blog where we share all our knowledge. But then we have an annual conference which goes now to the 3rd year. We have already for this year 900 participants from corporates, so the tickets are sold. It's a pure B2B event where we bring together really global decision makers. We have people from politics, from science, from corporates. So this is from last year. This year we have IBM, Microsoft, SAP sharing also their insights about data collection tools. But then we have also companies like Nestle or Simrise, where we see, okay, they are maybe in the beginning of their transformation journey, and we really want to learn from them. during the conference. What are the challenges? What is maybe holding them back? How do they so far operate with their suppliers? And for sure that helps us again to improve also and to understand better what's actually going on and what are the pain points. So yeah, that is first of all from my side, and yeah, maybe if there are more questions we can talk about it. Yeah, what I would love to share is like the journey we have so far with Wayra, and I don't know if I should just share or if you have specific questions.
Maybe how was your experience when in the beginning? Because at some point it was, I want to say that, it was one recommendation of one of our portfolio startups, so that's why community is so important. But in the beginning, I think I was responsible for that project with Climate Choice. So I had the first contact with Yasha, but then how was your experience with the we had a contract there, we had to negotiate it, and then the starting of the process with the whole pilot. How was it for you with the people from Telefónica, the speed, and how did it feel for you?
Yeah, so those were many questions, but I start and then you go in. So first, as you say, this first connection is like really funny because again, people often ask us as a tech company, why do you run a conference? And I think I explained it. It was like really a first starting thing, and we followed our own need. And actually, the guy from where we organized our conference, it's an online one, so we just needed someone else's office to join in. We were not yet in the factory, and he was working with you guys. So that is actually really funny. So he got involved during the conference and he really loved it and he was like really supporting, and then for sure we shared where we want to go and we stood in touch, and then he introduced us. So that is like really all about network, and you definitely wouldn't have thought about it. And yeah, it was super helpful. We started, I think, last October, right? And that was just a year later that we did the first conference. So we had our first minimal viable product. We had the first 50 customers. And that was, I think, a perfect time when we spoke because, yeah, we had already this first iteration round and like several sales cycles and first learnings. But we didn't work yet with a large corporate or more than like 500 employees or something. That was like, I think, the ceiling we kind of hit. And from your 5 hacks, I think I also brainstormed a little bit before, and they were quite similar. I think what was most important or really helping us quite a lot was like this contact to whom we would call a champion. So we are always targeting the sustainability officers or climate officers in companies who are dealing with the whole topic and who really have the problem and understand already it's not only about a CO2 calculation, you need more, you need a management system behind it, I need the data from my suppliers, who is literally right now sending out all these Excels. And that is really hard to find if you have a large corporate, you go to their LinkedIn profile, you filter through who is doing sustainability, and you find 10 people, you write them all, and maybe one time a person is answering. And that is super helpful, like to have then a first contact person directly and having the chance to directly pitch and learn from them. So I think that was a start of the journey that really, really helped us to have this direct contact.
And now your next step is the commercial agreement, right? So how was the process between the pilot project and the commercial agreement?
Yeah, I think also the pilot project, which we now call partner project, by the way. So just that's maybe also a tip that a partner project or pre-project to also set in the customer, like maybe an understanding of where we want to go to. What helped there in the second step from having this first champion was really the need, what you also said, to like put a really good business case there. So before we have been speaking with different kind of companies, so their need were differently. And then that we had this champion to talk to, it was really good to learn again from them how their business case is a little bit differently, and to be also forced a little bit, which is good, in the beginning to really have that prepared and go into financials, like how do you save them money and cost, and how do you potentially help them increase profit, and to really have that done and pitch it on a slide and not just have it after like several meetings, but like be prepared prepared to go in on the first conversation. That was really, really good. And then also to check with them and for sure iterate a little bit. But that was I think that was the first step to go into this pilot or pre-project. And I think for what helped us along that way, it's now like longer than half a year ago, right, is that we really together also learned, so the corporate and we, how we can scale it and where are the boundaries also. You said like you want to easily add up features, so we had that in the process. You're like, okay, we can do that and here and maybe, and then to go through that process and say, okay, you probably don't need it. You probably have like 5 different solutions adding you a little bit of that already. So we will not build something that you have already. What is the one thing you don't have? And that's what we add on, because that's what other people also don't have. And we found that out in other conversations. So that is, I think, what helped us during the process to also know what are the highest quality things we can improve and where we also focus on having a unique development of the project and therefore also product going on.
And I think it develops it a bit because in the beginning there's the big corporate and there's the one guy that decides if you can work with him or not. And then over the project it's different because now you're working together with, in this case it's Josh, you're working really close together and you know each other really good. So you want to do it, you want to develop it together in the corporate in the end, because also for him it's awesome to be in this case especially sustainable guy with the with the innovative solution there. So I think it's for both awesome, and I really like to see that it's an equal thing in the end. It's nothing like, oh, here's the corporate and I'm the small startup. No, we are together and we try to implement the solution in Telefónica or another corporate. So.
You also said like touch the emotions, and I think that is really the key thing. The moment you understand how the person's values are, and for sure, Josh is really someone who is all in motivation and like thinks day and night about sustainability. So that is really cool, and that also helps our team because we have quite driven people as well, also in the tech field, and everyone is like also questioning if it's the right way to go to work together with a corporate. And in the end it was really fruitful. And I think one sentence was that Josh said, which made me happy. Then in the collaboration he's like, oh, I feel like being part of the team. So that is really nice to see, like in the end he likes to be involved, but that is probably then also a part of the emotion to like build up that trust and like really see together that you are solving a problem.
So now I want to ask you, do you have any question? I hope so.
Oh, I can.
Hi. Thank you, first of all, for sharing the knowledge with us. I would like to ask you about the decision-making process from the corporate side when it comes to picking an agency or a startup for a service or a product. What are the most important criteria when it comes to picking someone? So you mentioned, of course, experience, but how about the pricing? For what is the top two, maybe the most important one?
That's interesting because the pricing is actually never a topic in the beginning. Of course, if something is ridiculous expensive, it's difficult. But normally in the beginning, it's really like when we do the first contact, we send a pitch deck and we do a first one-on-one, for example. And then it's really a lot. I think it's always a lot of the how you present your solution when you have the possibility to present it. And how you are prepared with the data protection topic, with the IT topics. For example, when you have to implement something on the IT side, then you have to think about it. How easy is it? Is it super complicated? Do you need 10 APIs, for example? Then it's difficult. And then they're normally really scared. So that's why you have to explain and why it's not super complicated to work with you, and why and why you understand their problem.
I would maybe add on that. I think one thing we experience is also that being safe is like really important. So I mean, like we deal with data and we work online, and that is still like a big topic, or like for sure it is a big topic, but then maybe in the corporates it's a little bit bigger. And actually it helped us that we have a climate compatible server which is hosted in Germany, and our main decision for it is that it's running on wind energy only, and that it's directly using all the heat created is like connected to an algae farm and so on. That's our main incentive, but it's in Germany and we know where the data is. They can call them, and it's not with the US or somewhere thing. So that is, being safe is also really important.
Yeah, server in US is always difficult. I know, that's also, I know. It's difficult to explain it to a startup, to be honest. It's not so good to have a server in US, but that's always a topic, yeah.
A little bit further down the road, when the pricing actually does matter, maybe Lara, the question to you, how do you approach the pricing discussion? I mean, obviously you need to give an offer. You don't know if it's totally out of range or not. And how do you approach the discussion, not losing your face, but which questions do you ask?
I think in general, as a startup, you can always learn your price is too low. So whatever it is, add something, and I also have to tell that to myself. But then the other thing, how we approached it is like really first you do benchmarking, so whatever you find in the market, someone offering something, so we have a B2B software, and you know, like what are different licenses, like how many employees, how many users do you have, is it a 1-year license or something, so you find some criteria from where you can maybe find a range of a price or an idea for yourself, maybe also as a backup. And then the really the point with the customer is what I shared before, like really go into like what business value are you bringing, and we were really calculating in hours, how much hours are we saving by not going through all the climate standards, by not setting up an own system, by not having time lost due to Excels, by not having the necessity of different approaches maybe, or different systems being connected and so on. So we really add that together and showed like, okay, you're basically saving a full person's salary. And finding there like an angle how to build up an pricing model and so on. And for them also getting the feedback of the person you're talking to. So like I would never go in especially in B2B, I think, like in and saying that's the last price. It's more like, okay, that's how we perceive it. What is your understanding? And then you can always say, I'm taking it back to my team.
And when you work with Accelerator, use it that there's the person in the middle, because I have for me it's easy to ask the guy from the business unit, how is your feeling? Do you think it was too expensive the last time? Or what do you think about the pricing? And they are normally really honest, and really use that in case you are part of an accelerator, use the person in the middle, because they have always they can ask everything without offending someone.
To Lara, if I understood correctly, you mainly try to work with corporates. Why did you make that choice, especially given how hard it is to win them as clients, as we have this masterclass about it today?
Yeah, actually, we are not only working with corporates. We see with our platform, we have kind of a two-sided market model. So our approach is to help companies set up an climate management system. And we actually started with small and medium-sized companies because we thought, okay, there is the biggest issue because they don't have a large sustainability or CSR department, and they have actually the highest cost of going into that field. And we started with them, and that was really good, and I think that is what we heard here as a niche. So we focused first on really intrinsic motivated companies that also are already setting up their business model in a kind of green or sustainable area and said, okay, we're going to support you to really do it right and to also show that to the outside world and to be ready to position yourself also in this new market. But from there we saw, okay, the biggest need is really to share this data, not only in your own company, but to go into reporting and especially to work together with your business partners and to really provide the background and the proof of why you are what we call a climate champion, to have this trust building and to also the necessary data foundation to work on actions together. So from there we really learned, okay, the corporates are the biggest angle because they then need this data from their customers. So we went through that journey coming from our niche, going to, okay, when we bring these two sides together, it becomes even more effective and we kind of have a flying wheel of really approaching a big audience and scaling it up for our purpose also to really transform industry. And through having the first corporate clients, we then see it really needs both sides. So we are empowering the suppliers. They have the biggest benefit from our tool because they don't have access yet often to all these resources and to a software that helps them to really easily go along collecting the data, validating it, sharing it, and so on. But then the corporates bring us also the scale, and then also for them it's the biggest pain point to really get these data. So kind of to answer your question, we haven't started with the corporates, but we see it's a really valuable part to like approach a big part of the industry and to bring the change that's required for now and for the business model. It's really to bring both sides together. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Okay, perfect.
So first of all, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. My question is for you, Lara. How did you, or you or anyone else in your team, how did you approach and win your first clients? How did you make your first sales? Which tools and tactics did you use?
Okay, so the really first product you mean, not now the corporate product, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the first product was really after our conference, so to say. So before that we did more consulting, and actually I did my master's thesis 2015 about how to set up a data structure to measure sustainability and climate impact of companies, and that was our first minimal viable product. So I never planned it, but it was more like, okay, that is the KPIs we need. We built it into an assessment tool, and we had a really bad first minimal viable product. I'm even ashamed to say which tools we used, but like it was that bad that I'm without a tech background could put it together myself, which I did. I was like, hey, I have it already, we can use it this way, and my co-founder, especially Ray, who was like the data analyst and software expert, he's like, yeah, that you can't share with anyone, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I already sold it, but that was more in conversation. So I really thought like, we were all looking into who's our main target group. We want to support small and medium-sized companies. We had the assumption that those who are already in the field of sustainability are easier to approach and it's changing tremendously. It's becoming more and more a mass market, but that was even 2 years ago. It was like, okay, we are approaching the ones who are already communicating, going in there. And then in the first conversations, it was really all going in and asking, what are your issues? What are you learning so far? Where do you stand right now? What are your next steps? And really trying to get them share their journey, and then going into, we actually have something that helps you. And the first customer bought something without having seen anything. It's just having this conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
More questions?
Me again. Given that there's lots of competition in the accounting and like general CO2 emission market, how do you differentiate yourself from other products, and what do you tell potential clients what makes you the best choice?
So first of all, we are the climate choice, but I guess what is most important is we are not doing carbon accounting. So that's really to differentiate. most other tools really help companies to assess their CO2 footprint of their own company, which is basically, for the people who are not in that, you do a sum. You add up different product, services, costs that you basically have and add them to a CO2 number. And you really need to have very precise databases, and from there decides basically who has the best tool, if you have the strongest asset of these database, or at least that is how I perceive it. What not so many companies do, and it's maybe evolving more and more as well, is more giving companies an understanding to benchmark where they stand in terms of their own climate management, to really have a climate rating of their own performance, and to understand what I do good, what are my strengths, and then what are my risks, and really go into action from there. So that is what we are doing. We are collecting up to 150 different KPIs and different data points. We do that not on our own gut feeling, but along different standards. So there are, for everyone who is in there, there are 3 big ones that are becoming more and more important to companies. And from there, we guide them through 9 different steps how they can improve. So we are not only helping them to collect the data and to really have their own foundation for their own management, but we help them to understand what are the areas they should act on, and then we also show them which are steps they can do. So give that in a nutshell, that is how I would differentiate it and how I explain it to customers.
Hello. So my question is, well, sometimes big corporations, they want exclusivity when you're a startup. So how can you handle this situation? Because you're a startup, you want to scale, you don't want just to build a solution for one specific corporation. So that would be like they would absorb you basically, don't let you offer the solution to other or clients.
I guess the question is to me.
Yeah,
so for us, it's actually the opposite. So I can't really explain it or like give a tip for the other side. As we are collecting the data from the suppliers and make it accessible to the corporates to like see these data points and use it in their own management systems, it's actually helpful the more and more suppliers we have in there, so that potentially customers can have the same data that they shared already with one company, which we call their climate scorecard. They can share with multiple customers who have the same problem. So actually we have now already corporates where we are talking and they ask, can you tell us if you have those suppliers already in there, because they may be in a similar area or something, and they know there are not so many different suppliers. So obviously we don't tell them, because that's, again, a data issue that we can't cross. But yeah, for us it's actually helpful the more companies we have in there.
Okay, one last question. So many questions.
Hi, my question is about the technical part. So I guess for a startup like yours, you told that you were ashamed to sell like that.
Not longer.
Not longer. Yeah. So where did you find the team of developers, or where the startups find them? Like if we're talking about technical.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, that was actually exactly the reason. So in the beginning, we were the 3 co-founders, and we didn't have a team yet. And yeah, for the first product, that is why we had to do it very much ourselves. Yeah, finding tech people is really hard in Berlin. We are hiring. I don't know who's here. But yeah, then it definitely, again, it comes down to own network. So we have a lot of people reaching out to us. In the beginning, we were quite lucky as well. I think the market is changing now. But during Corona, not so many people were hiring. So we started in April 2020. So I think the first job offer we put online, we got a few hundred applications. And yeah, that's definitely changing now. But then for tech, it's really, again, your network. So asking everyone you know, going to business partners, customers, investors, putting it out, and yeah, get help maybe from, I mean, we have a talent person who's also doing a recruiting. That definitely helps after you don't have to do it anymore yourself. But
and use something like accelerators, for example, because we have at Munich, for example, we do CTO roundtables or we do events where people can where they have an idea and they're looking for the development person or the tech person, and they really go to this event to meet their next or their co-founder, for example. So I think these events are the perfect match for that. And also some accelerators have something like a website where they post all the jobs of the startups. So we do that, for example.
That's maybe an add-on, because I think you asked us already, right? My first co-founder I met organizing a startup weekend 10 years ago or even more. So those are weekends where you come together to start a startup. We didn't really know that we would start up 10 years later. And then the second co-founder, we have been working together before. So also you don't know that when you're at that time, but then you look back and you know, like, okay, with whom have you been working really well and who clicked with you and has the same mission. And that was, the second co-founder then.
Amazing. So, thank you both so much for this conversation. It's been super exciting. If you have more questions for Lara and Nora, you can go ahead and ask them during our networking. So we'll have drinks downstairs. So please join us for some drinks downstairs. And thank you all so much. A round of applause for this masterclass. Thanks, everyone.